Here's our complete HitFilm tutorial for beginners. Previously known as HitFilm Express, this video editing software has seen some big changes recently, so we'll share exactly how to use it and what makes it a great video editor for PC and Mac. So I'm going to be showing you on a Mac, but the process is exactly the same on PC. It's also worth noting that what I'm showing you here is just using the free version of HitFilm. It is great, but yes, there are paid options available if you want to unlock all the features and functionality, and I'll have links down in the description to help you. So this is what you'll see when you first open up HitFilm. The first and most important thing you want to do is make sure that you actually are signed into your account. So we can choose here, File, then come down to Options. You get this pop-up window appear here. We want to come down here to Activation, and we want to make sure that we have actually logged in to our free account. Even though it's free, you will still need an account to do this. If you're not logging in, then that's when you could end up with watermarks and all of that sort of stuff. So create a free account, log in, and then we're all set to create our new project. So we're going to come up the top left here and choose Create New. Here you can specify the template, or this is the size, the format of the video that you're going to be creating. And so you can see you can choose from the drop down here your resolution, so 1080p, 2K, 4K, whatever the project might be. And you've also got your frame rate at the end here. So my footage is 1080p, 30 frames per second. So that's what I'm going to pick here. Now we could also manually key in our settings down the bottom here, 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second. But I would imagine for most people, you're just going to pick it from the list here. So then we just want to come down here to OK, and it's going to go ahead and create our project for us. Now it's a good idea at this point to save your project. So you want to go File, Save, and then we'll give our project a name. I'll just go JB Edit. In this case, I'm just going to save it on my desktop, but save it on your computer somewhere with the rest of your video projects. So we're going to hit Save. So now we've got our project set up. So a quick overview of the interface here. This area up here, they call the trimmer. This is your preview window, where we can preview different clips and different assets and things before we're actually bringing them down into our edit. Over here is our viewer. This is our playback monitor for what it is that we're actually editing. Now there's some different tabs and things across the top here as well. You can see that we're currently on the viewer tab. If we switch to export, then we're seeing settings for exporting. So it's good to be aware of these different tabs and things. And a lot of these are customizable. We could pick this up. We could move it around if we'd like to. I'm going to leave things as default, but feel free to create the editing environment that is best for you. Down the bottom here, we have our audio meters. So this is our visual representation of the audio piece of our video, so we can see how loud things are. We've got our editing timeline down the bottom here. This is where the magic happens. This is where we're going to be editing. And then down the bottom left-hand corner here, we've got a bunch of other panels. So you can see right now it's showing us the effects panel. We've gone for media, we've got library, there's controls. These will make more sense as we go through. So this is the default layout here, and it's likely what you guys are going to be seeing when you first open this up. As I said, you can customize this up and move things around, change the scaling, sizing of everything as well. And we can also come up here and choose Window, then Workspaces, and there are some preset layouts for different kinds of editing tasks. So you've got one here for color grading, you've got an editing one, there's also one for vertical video. So if we are going to be editing portrait style videos, you can see that by selecting that, it's moved all these panels around for us and given us a vertical preview window, which is pretty cool. At any time, if you want to revert back, we can just come back here to Workspaces. We can then choose Editing, or if we've made changes to one of those preset layouts, we can come back here to Window, Workspaces, and we can reset the workspace back to default. You can also save your own custom workspaces in here too. So I've reset this workspace now for editing. You can see that a few things have moved around a little bit, but everything is still in a logical place. So the first thing we want to do from here is import our video assets. So we want to come over here to Media, and then we can just right click in this area here and we can choose Import Media. We can then navigate through and find our video files that we want to bring in. So in this case here, I've got a few different files. I'm going to select all of those three and I'm going to choose Open. Now, if we've got a lot of different files and things that we're going to be working with, we can create folders in here. So we can right click and choose New. We can have Folder, and maybe we create a folder for our footage. We can also create folders for our music and graphics and all of those things as well. And we can just pick our footage up and move it inside of each of these folders to categorize it so it's easy to find later. So I can create a new folder here again for music. And when we bring in our music, we can file that away there. But now that we've got some video clips imported, we're going to click on our primary camera footage here. This is the first clip that you want to bring down to your timeline. So we can just select this clip and we can just drag it down here into our timeline. And we can then see we've got our video track here at the top and we've got our audio track here. We can see here our audio waveforms. So the visual representation of where we are speaking or where there is audio or sound in our videos. So if we are going to be editing a video like one of ours where there's someone just talking to camera, we can clearly see the points where there is no talking happening. So this section here and the areas that we are talking. So in this case, I just brought our entire clip down into the timeline. I'm going to select that and I'm going to press delete on the keyboard to remove it because I'm going to show you another way that you can bring footage down as well. We can double click on the clip here to open it here in our trimmer window, our preview window here. And from in here, we can play through the clip or we can grab this little dial here and we can scrub across to find the section of our clip that we want to bring in. And we can just mark out the section from this bigger clip of the clips that we want to bring in. So when I find where I want the clip to start, I can just press this little button here, and that's going to go ahead and mark an in point or a start point for me. I can also press I on the keyboard for this as well. And let's say that we wanted this clip to finish about here. We can then press O on the keyboard to mark an out point, or we can press this button here. And you can see now this dark blue line that we've just selected from this entire clip, just that small area there. So now I can click and drag from here down into our timeline, and you'll see that section we brought in is just that smaller section of our larger clip. And so in video editing, you'll find there's lots of different ways to do things. I want to explain these different tools for you so you know what's available to you. Then when you're editing, it's going to make sense sometimes to use one tool, one method, other times another. Now, one other really cool feature here, if I remove that again, so select the clip, delete it, we've gone through here, we've marked our in and out points. So we've just got this smaller section that we want to bring in. We also get the option here when we put our mouse cursor up here to just use the video or just use the audio. So if I click and drag here, use video, and I drag that down to the timeline, you'll see that we're only bringing in the video portion of our clip, not the audio. Likewise, if we just want the audio, we could bring that in too. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to mark our entire clip here. So we'll bring the clip in its entirety as I did the first time, and I'm just going to click and drag that to our timeline. So we've got the whole thing in there. And then from here, what we'll want to do is to start trimming this down. We want to remove all the bad takes, all the mistakes, so that we're left with just the stuff that we want to use in our finished project. So this is an iterative process. We don't need to have it all perfect yet. We're going to do a first pass on this and just remove the bad stuff. So you'll see as I click around on this top menu bar here, it's updating this playback indicator, this white line. So we're able to jump directly to these sections of the videos here just by clicking on them. We can also click and drag. So if we want to scrub through or preview what's happening really quick, then we can do that by clicking and dragging in this section here on this window. We obviously also have the ability to play, stop, pause, rewind the clips as well. So you've got playback controls over here for that. Or we can also use keyboard shortcuts like spacebar will play the clip, J on the keyboard will play the clip backwards, and L on the keyboard will play the clip forward, and K will stop it. Now, in terms of cutting down our clips, we're going to come down here and let's start trimming down the start of this. Now, I want to zoom in on my timeline here so that I've got more control over what's happening. I can use the keyboard shortcuts Control plus or Command plus to zoom in and Control or Command minus to zoom out. Or you can see that we've got this little slider down the bottom here as well, where we can click and drag here or click these end magnifying glasses to zoom in and out. So I'm going to zoom in quite a bit here, and you can see that we have this empty audio here at the start, which is where I'm not speaking. So we're going to want to remove that. We can clearly see in the preview here that nothing is happening at that point. So let's say that we wanted to have our clip start at this point. Then what we could do here is select this clip in the timeline. Let's move our mouse cursor to this left side, and you can see that our cursor changes. If I click and drag back towards the right, you can see that we're actually adjusting that in point on the clip here in the timeline, and we've now removed that. So our clip now starts at this point. But it's also worth noting that our video still starts back here at 0. So if we look at this, there's actually nothing. It's blank here now until that point, and then the video starts to play. So we can select this clip and we can drag it back to reposition it so that this actually starts where we want it to at the start of our video. Now, if we really look at this example footage I've got here, while I start talking at this time, I'm actually not recording the video. I must be running my last minute checks, making sure everything is all good. So it actually looks like I start recording at this point here, presenter face on. So for us to remove all of this stuff at the start, again, we could come back over here, we could click and drag to remove that section, move everything back, or there's lots of other options too. So we can come up here to edit and down to slice. And it says here, for me on Mac, the keyboard shortcut is Shift Command D. So it's likely Shift Control D on Windows. But if I either click on this slice, or if I press the keyboard shortcut, you can see now it has cut our clip here in half. And we have a clip on the left and a clip on the right. Now, if we just want to delete this clip, we can select on it here and press delete on the keyboard. Again, it's removed it from our timeline, but it hasn't removed the gap. We've still got this blank space here. If we undo that with Control Z or Command Z, so we've still got our clip cut at that point, but we want to remove this first section, I can just right click here and I can actually choose Ripple Delete. So Option Delete or Option Backspace here. So if we press Ripple Delete, it's going to remove that clip and it's also going to close up that gap for us. It's going to ripple edit. So now that that's gone, we look at the next piece here. You can see that I'm talking through all of this section here and I stop at this point. Right, so we're going to want to add a cut in our timeline again at this point. So we could select our clip, come up here and slice our clip at that point. We could then come over here to where I start talking again. So we want to remove this section here in the middle. We could slice that clip again, Command Shift D or Control Shift D, and we could ripple delete that and it's gone. Now there is also a slice tool here. So we could actually switch from our arrow cursor to a razor blade slice tool. And then we can just position here where we want to add a cut. So around here and click in this clip and it's automatically cut it there for us. Likewise, if we want another cut about here, we can just click at that point. So we can go through and add these cuts in bulk or really quickly, and then we can come back and ripple delete those sections that we don't want. So we could switch back to our arrow here. We could select this clip, right click, ripple delete, and it's gone. Now we can also use a combination of these things as well. If it made sense for you just to click the edge of the clip there and drag it back to that point, then we can remove that section there as well. Now we can also get rid of this gap here by right clicking on it and choose ripple delete gap. And that's going to remove that gap for us and bring everything back. So we don't need to manually move a ton of little clips back and forth. It's going to automatically close that gap and bring everything else along for us. And this obviously works exactly the same if we jump to the very end of our timeline here as well. We can see that the main piece here where I finish recording is about here. I could come back here to the end of the clip. I could click and drag this back here. And when I let go, that is now the new end of our clip. So you want to go through now and you want to use those tools, use the cut, use the splice, use the ripple delete, use the adjusting in and out points here in the timeline to remove all the bad takes, all the mistakes, so that you're just left with the good stuff. All right, so we can see we've done that first pass on our edit here. Now, what we're essentially left with here is little blocks or chunks of footage. So let's say that we wanted to reorder some of these. We can literally pick them up. We can move them around. We can change the order of them really, really simply just by clicking and dragging on them. So you want to go through and build out that story here as well. Once you've got your primary camera footage here or your main story here locked down, the next step is to bring in any overlay or B-roll footage. So in the case of this video here, I have some B-roll clips related to the content there, and it just so happens that it is a screen recording file. So I've got this file up here, screen recording. So what I would do here is I would scrub through here to find the areas that I want to use. So there's an area here where we are typing something into YouTube. So maybe we'll start the clip around here. I'm going to press I on the keyboard. I'm then going to wait until that piece has loaded, and maybe about there. I press O on the keyboard. So we've marked an in and out point. Again, I could have used these buttons here. I then just want the video portion of this clip, use video, and I want to drag it down into my timeline here. And I want to drag it onto a new video layer. You can see it's appeared on top of our primary footage. So then we want to drop it in roughly where we want it. We can reposition on all of that stuff a little later. And we can see now that we have our main video track, we have our B-roll here on top of it. Now I'm going to readjust some of these so we can see things a little bit better. I want you to see that in bringing this in and placing it on top of, we actually haven't removed anything or overwritten anything that's happening on this main layer. So if we were to scrub through our footage here now, we can see that we have our main footage playing if we were playing this. And then at this point, we're now seeing this clip here instead of me. Now, in the case of this clip here, we can see it's zoomed in. It's much bigger. It's actually a 4K file, whereas the other file here was 1080. So we can resize that. So with this clip selected, we can then come up here to controls and we can zoom, scale, do all of that stuff here with these transform settings. So I'm going to grab scale and I'm going to drop that down. There we go, until that fits. Now, as with any other clip that we've got here on the timeline, we could adjust the start time and the end time just by using those handles on the side. We can click on it, we can pick it up, we can move it around. All these clips really behave pretty much the same. So that's our first clip that we've got in the timeline there. Let's go through and find the next piece of this. So maybe it's here where we're zooming out on YouTube. I think this was in relation to showing people how your thumbnail images need to look good small. So yeah, maybe this piece of B-roll here could fit. Let's mark an in point, let's mark an out point. Let's grab that video piece of that clip and let's drop it down here, maybe around here, if this is where we want it in this project. Again, this one's gonna come in big as well, so we can select on it. We can come over here to controls, down here to scale, and we can scale this down. Now, it obviously doesn't have to just be screen recording footage. We can bring any footage in at this point. So here is a clip here of some rowing through the surf. Let's say that we wanted this to start around here. Mark an in point, go to around here, mark an out point, and then we can then bring this down into our timeline too. And then we can resize it if we need to. So select it on it, over to controls, and we have our scale and position, all of these tools here too. So if I scale this down here, you can also see that when it's smaller here, we can get our regular handles here on the side as well. So we could actually just click and drag and scale our clips around on here too. But I'm going to undo that just so that it fits our section here. So you want to go through, add in any B-roll, any overlay clips into your timeline now. The next step then is to add in any text into our videos. So we can come up here to this little plus button here. It says new clip, and we can choose text. Now this is going to create a new layer for us on top of wherever we are in our project. So you can see here, because I already had two video layers, our primary video track, our B-roll or overlay, because I had this playback cursor here, this white line here at this point, it's actually created a new text layer for us on top of all of that. Again, it's non-destructive, it's going to go to the highest point. But just like anything, we can click on this text placeholder here, or this text clip, and we can pick it up and we can move it around. So let's say that we wanted to have some text towards the start here. We can select on our text box here. We can come over to our text panel to be able to customize this up. But you can see that we have here a flashing cursor here in the middle of the screen. So I can just start typing here. So we could go Justin Brown. We could select this text, and let's make it match our brand. So we go through and find the fonts and everything that we'd like. So we'll choose Oswald semi-bold. Let's make it bigger, maybe something like this. We can adjust the color and everything on here as well. We can also add a background here too. So maybe I'll pick here our Primal video blue color. Let's go okay. And then let's adjust the width and height of this box. So maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger, something like that. Maybe we'll adjust the text character spacing as well. Bring that down a little bit. Okay, something like that. It's not too bad. So we've now got our text layer here with our text on screen. Now, if we come back up here to controls, then this is where, again, we can change the position of this. We can move it around here on screen. We could also adjust the scale here if we wanted it bigger or smaller here in its entirety. Or as you've seen, we've also got this text panel here to customize things up. But now when we play through this section here, you'll see that the text box appears for the length here and then disappears at the end of that clip. So you want to go through now and add in any text into your project at this piece in the process. And then from there, we're going to add in any transitions and effects into our timeline here. So if we come over here to where it says effects, In here, you'll see there's lots of different things. There's video effects, there's audio effects. There's a lot of free ones in here, but there's also some that are marked as paid where you've got to be on one of the paid plans. But let's come down here to transitions for video. Let's hit this little drop down arrow here so we can see what's in here. And you can see that we have some pretty standard ones in here, like a fade or dissolve. And we can see the little marker here that for this one in particular, light leak, that is a pro one. If you do apply this to your project and you're on the free plan, like I am here right now, that it will put a watermark on your project until you upgrade. So we have no issues using the free ones, but obviously if you want to unlock all the features in here, you will need to pay for the pro or one of the upgraded accounts. Some of these in here will be marked as creator as well, like these ones down here. Okay, let's go back here to our transitions. Let's grab this cross dissolve here and let's drag this on to the start of our B-roll clip here with the screen recording. You see that before I've even let go of the mouse click here, we've got a little green box that shows up. And when I release that, you can now see that we have our transition at the top here applied. So just to quickly scrub through this now, you can see that instead of that clip just appearing, it's now fading on. So we've added a transition between those clips or at the start of this clip. Now, if we zoom in on our timeline, again, using Command or Control Plus or the little slider bar down the bottom here, we can actually adjust how long that transition happens for. You can see when we put our mouse cursor over around this transition effect that we can extend it, we can shorten it too. So if we want it to happen over a shorter period of time, then we could do that here. And let's play this now. Okay, pretty quick. And that same process will work for any of these other transitions. So if we wanted to say, grab this one here, push, and let's put it towards the end of this clip here. And let's just play this now. At the end of this, when it cuts back to me, it's pushing it off to the side. So we've added transitions now to this B-roll clip, and I would say use these sparingly where they're adding value to your edit. Don't just drop these on every little clip and every cut because it'll make your videos look very amateurish. So use them sparingly where they add to the project. But where a lot of people go wrong with transitions like this is between two similar clips here, like we have in this case, where it's just me talking or talking head, and there really is no need for a transition between them, but there is a jarring cut when we switch from one of these clips to the next. So let me play this section here and you'll see there's a quick little jump. In a lot of cases on YouTube videos, it's not a problem to have that. But if it's happening all the time, it can be very distracting for your viewers. So in the case of our YouTube content, what we would normally do instead is we would just pick one of these clips, the first one or the second one, and I would zoom in on it to essentially make it look like it was a separate camera angle or a closer shot. So I'm going to select this second clip here. We're going to come back up here to controls. I've got our transform area here. We're going to go to scale. And depending on how you've shot this, you really don't want to zoom in too much because you could be losing quality. But I'm going to go to around 112 here. And let's just take a look at this. We're not quite finished with this effect yet, but if we play it now, at that point, it kind of zooms in. Now it's still pretty jarring, but we can make it look so much better if we're trying to line up the eye position and keep it very much the same between those two cuts or between those two shots. So I'm going to again come back to this second shot. I'm going to reposition this now. I'm not going to zoom in anymore. Let's bring it down a little bit and let's try to line up the eye position best we can. So even this now, it's not perfect, but it is so much better. So if we play this now, it's far less jarring for your viewers watching. So at this point, I've showed you how to add transitions. I've showed you how we can zoom in. We can reframe your shots here as well. But you'll also want to go through in this stage of your editing process and add in any other effects. So we are here on the effects page. It's a good idea to go through these to see what you've got access to. Because if you know the tools and things that you've got, then it will allow you to be creative with those. So we could come down here to things like video cleanup. And if we wanted to stabilize our video footage, if we had shaky footage, then we could drag a video stabilizer onto our clip. Obviously this one here is marked as Pro. If we wanted to adjust the speed of the clips, speed them up, slow them down, play them in reverse, let's go to temporal. And in here we have things like speed control, we have time displacement layout, we also have time reverse. So let's go back to our clip here of the boat. A good example, like obviously if we play this, it's going to be playing forward in real time. But if we want to reverse this clip, we can drag this time reverse effect onto that clip. And this clip now, if we play it, it might struggle a little bit. I think the screen recording is not really doing it much justice here, but it is playing back in reverse. So obviously when we export this out, it's going to play back smooth in reverse. Now with any effects that we've applied to our clips, if I select on this clip here now and we come back up here to controls, we can now see under effects which effects we have applied to that clip. Let's say, for instance, we added motion trails onto that clip as well. We can then see with this clip selected, we now have those two things there. So we can, from there, dive in and make adjustments. You can see for motion trails here, I can adjust some things to adjust that blur or adjust that motion trail effect. Or I can also turn it off by hitting the little checkbox here. So if we need to disable it, or if we want to remove it, we can select on it and press the delete key on the keyboard. Exactly the same for this time reverse. If we don't want it reversed anymore, we can select on it, press delete, and that effect has been removed from that clip. So you want to go through now, add in any transitions, any effects into your timeline. Once that's done, this is where we'll go ahead and bring in any music and sound effects into our project. Now, if we come back up here to library, there are some built-in free sound effects, video effects, those kinds of things in here as well. Generally, though, I would strongly recommend not using the ones that are built into any video editing tool, just for licensing and all of that stuff. You want to make sure that you're compliant. But fairly recently, Artlist, who are one of our top recommended music providers or sites for finding stock music, they've actually partnered up or purchased HitFilm. The two are integrated now. So what you'll likely find in here is that there is a bunch of really good stuff that you can use in your projects too. But again, you want to double check that you're always compliant with this stuff. But you're also not just limited to using the stuff that's included here. We can see there's music, there's sound effects, there's also video templates and those sorts of things in here too. We can come back over to media and we can import our own. So we created a music folder here earlier. I can right click, I can choose import media, and I can go and find the file that I want to use on my computer. So we can see here I've got a music track that I've downloaded from our Artlist account. I can select on that to open it up. I can move it into that music folder. And then for us to bring this down into our timeline, we've got the same tools. We can either bring the entire track down. We could mark out an in and out point if we just want a certain section of it. I'm just going to grab the track and drop it down. We're going to drop it down below our primary footage. And you can see it's readjusted things there once that's actually let go, but we don't want to be overriding stuff when we're bringing this down. So now if we zoom out on our timeline here, we can see that we have our video edit that's happening here towards the start. We've also now got our music track, which is running along the bottom here. And it actually goes for much longer than our video at this point. So we've got, again, got access to the same tool. So if we're going to trim off the end of this, we could just come along and let's drag this back so that it finishes when our project finishes. But we could also pick this up, we can move it around and add cuts and all of those sorts of things in here if there was a certain section that we wanted, or if we wanted to loop or to repeat part of that music track as well. So now that we have our music track in here, it's generally going to come in pretty loud, especially if we're going to be editing it with a video like we are here, where it is someone speaking. So the first thing I'll do here is just lower the volume on the music track just a little bit so that we can still hear it. We're going to get to our proper volume level adjustments very, very soon. But what we want to make sure of is, does this track actually fit the edit that we're making? And now that we've got the music track in there, do we need to make minor adjustments to these edits to maybe match our cuts to the beat or to match the track so that everything flows? So we're going to do a really quick volume level adjustment first. I'm going to click on the clip and you'll see here that we've got this white line that runs through. If we just select on that and pull down, you can see that we're able to lower the volume level on that clip. So in this case here, I'm going to drop it to maybe -14 in this case. Every music track is likely going to be a little bit different. But from here, now I can come back up here, I can play through the clips and I can still hear what's been said. Our music isn't going to be too loud, and I can retime things and make minor edits to our clips if we need to. And the process is exactly the same if we wanted to bring in any sound effects as well. So in this case, we could come back up here to library, sound effects. Let's go free sound effects. Let's scroll down here. Let's say if we wanted this one, car horn honking, we can press download, and then we can hit the plus button here to add this media into our preview here. And then from here, we can drag this down into our timeline. And I'd always suggest, if you are doing that you would add your sound effects to a separate track to your music tracks. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Let's remove that clip there. So we've just got our music track in here at this point. So once we've done any of those minor adjustments, minor tweaks to our timeline, From here, now we are going to adjust our volume levels. Now for this, I would strongly recommend that you're doing this with headphones on so that you're getting a good representation of what this sounds like, but also afterwards that you're playing this back on, say, your mobile device if you can, and just using your computer speakers so that you can see how this sounds on different devices. And I also want you to remember that this is a creative thing. There is no right or wrong with this. Just don't make your videos too loud so they're distorting and hard for people to watch, or have your music too overpowering for any spoken narration or anything so that people can't hear what's happening. So as I've said a couple of times, there's lots of different ways that we can do this. I'm going to go ahead and mute the music track here first because I want to get our spoken piece, the volume of that set right first. Then we'll bring in our music or sound effects and get all of those set right as a secondary to that. So I can just hear on this audio layer 2, I can just hit mute. And now when we play back our clips, we're only going to hear the spoken piece in this case. So if I come back to the start of our clip here and select the first track, if I press play on this, then we'll see our audio bars over here going. And we can see that it goes from a green to yellow and then into red. And then we've got this 0 point here. That is the maximum that you would want to have your sound. If you're going over that point and we're really into the red area, that's where your audio is too loud and it's distorting. It's going to sound really bad for people. So we want to make sure that our audio is coming up to that point where it's in this top area here, like it is here, but we don't want it going above 0 in this case. And just from looking at this, looks like our audio here might be a fraction too loud. So we can either adjust this on a clip by clip basis. So I can select this clip here in the timeline and grab that slider there for volume and bring it down a little bit to lower just that clip. Obviously then I want to match that with the rest of our video here too. Or if I undo that, so just selecting on the audio piece here is going to bring up your audio controls. We can adjust this here with this slider. You can actually see that it's moving that bar there on the timeline too. Or in this case, because we're using same camera, same microphone, the audio is consistent and we just want to lower the entire lot, we can actually do it on an audio track level here too and make adjustments to every clip that is on this track. So for that, we want to come up here to audio mixer. The audio track that we are looking at here is audio 1. So audio 1 here. Then we can just pull this down to lower the volume across that entire audio track. So now when we play this, you'll see that our audio levels are lower consistently and we didn't have to do it on a clip by clip basis. So now that we have those right, this is where we'll adjust the audio levels for our music track. Generally where we're going with this for us is normally around the -30 to -25 level. But again, it's going to come down to each individual track. Some are going to be louder, some are going to be quieter. We want to make sure that we are unmuting this again. And then we've got the same adjustments. We could do the entire track with audio track 2 in this case and make adjustments here to that. Or with this clip selected, we've got our audio properties up here too. But I would be lowering that. I'd then be playing it and seeing how it sounds with headphones on. Now, for those of you that want to get a little bit more advanced with this, and maybe there's some areas of your music tracks or your audio that you want to have louder than others without needing to cut them into little chunks and adjust them all individually, we can use keyframes here. So we can see here on our audio track, we have this little button here, which is to enable keyframes or track or clip envelopes as they call it here. So with this enabled here now, let's say that we wanted to adjust the start of our clip here, the music track, to fade in slowly over time. We could come back to the very start of our timeline here with that playback head. I can hold down Control or Command, and you can see now we get this plus button. If I press that on the timeline, you can see it creates this little diamond there. That's a keyframe. Let's come across a little bit further here and let's do the same. Let's hold down Control or Command and click on the timeline there. And these now are points where we can make adjustments to those sections. So if I come back here and I click on this first point and I pull it down, you can see that I'm able to adjust the volume at that point in time for that clip. So if we drop this right down as low as it goes, then at this point now at the start of our clip, we are going to have no volume. But you can see that our volume level here is progressively increasing until that point. So we could move this across, we could move it up and down to make the adjustments that we want. So let's say that we wanted it to fade in from 0. So from nothing, fade up to this minus 24 over this period of time, that's now going to happen. Now let's say that over here further, we wanted to increase our volume for a short period, but then bring it back down. We can again hold down Control or Command. Let's add 4 extra points here in this timeline. And let's leave the 2 outside ones, but let's make adjustments here to these 2 inside ones. Let's make them louder. Let's lift up the volume at this point. So we can see now that our volume starts at 0, it works its way up to minus 24 and it stays there. Now at this point, it goes from minus 24 up to minus 1, so it's getting louder at that point and it stays around there for that period of time and comes back to our overall setting where we want it for the rest of the track here at minus 24. These are keyframes or envelopes, giving you much more granular control. So once you've gone through, you've adjusted all of your volume levels, you've gone through, you've played your clip, it's how you want it. The next step then is to apply any color grades or to correct the colors in your videos. And we save this until nearly last because depending on the system you're working on, this can put your computer under a bit of strain, especially that it's trying to process this now for every frame that you are playing back. So we can select one of our clips on the timeline here, and we can make sure we're on this effects panel again, and we can come over here. We've got color correction and we've got color grading. And again, you're going to see there's a mix of pro tools, creator tools, and free tools in here as well. So where I would generally start with this is under color correction. We do have an auto color setting here that you could see if it gets your footage close to how you want to look at. We just drag this down on the timeline here and let's have a look at that now. Let's turn that on and off. So we've got the auto color here that's on without it. So this is before, after. I mean, it hasn't done a bad job. And obviously then we could make further adjustments here on there. But auto adjustments aren't really something that I generally recommend. A lot of times it's definitely hit and miss. So I'm going to remove that auto color. But where I would be starting here, first off, is with the brightness and contrast. So let's apply that to our clip here. Let's get that looking the way that we want. So we can brighten it up a bit if we need to. We can add some contrast. So already before, after, you can see there's just a little subtle difference there. After I've applied the brightness and contrast, from there I would be looking at our color temperature. So let's apply that one on there as well. And this is where with this little slider here, we can make our shot look warmer. So add more orange or yellow to it. You don't want to go too far. And if we go the other way, we can make it cooler. So this is where we can correct our white balance from our camera if it wasn't set correctly, or we want to change the feeling of our shot here. And then if we want to tweak things further from there, then this is where you could use your hue, saturation, and lightness effect. Let's apply that one. And then let's dive into the master. So we're going to apply this to our entire clip and we could adjust the colors here with hue shift. I really don't think we need to make too many adjustments to this one, but you can start to see what these effects can do. Saturation is one that a lot of people want to tweak a little bit just to amplify some of the colors here. Again, you don't want to go too much, but you can see that if we were at 0 before, but you can see that we can add some more color here. Again, let's do a before and after with this, just that saturation boost. So you can see it just starts to look a bit nicer, a bit more color. So those are the effects that I would be applying here, but obviously you can see that you've got a lot more control with some of these pro and creator effects in here too. So for a before and after overall, this is our after, this is our before. So we can see here the difference of those two. Now what we've done here is we've applied these effects to this first clip here in the timeline, which in some cases you will want to do that. In other cases like this, you'd want those then same effects applied to all of the clips here so that they all match. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. With our first clip selected here, we can then come over and let's select these effects that we have added here. So we've added brightness and contrast. I'm going to hold down Control or Command, and I'm going to select the others here as well. I can then right click and I can choose copy. So we're going to copy those 3 effects. I can then select the rest of our clips here in the timeline and I can choose edit, paste. And it's going to apply all of those same effects that we just applied to the first clip to the remaining clips here as well. So that's one way that you can do this. But generally what I would do instead is if I did have a look that I wanted to apply across a bunch of clips, I'd create what they call a grade track in here. So if I go new clip and let's create a grade. If we scroll up here, this is added on a new video layer above. We now have this placeholder here, which is essentially an empty or a transparent clip that we can expand, we can contract, we can add cuts and whatever in, but this acts as a placeholder for any of our effects. So instead of us adding all of those effects to this first clip here, we could leave all of those empty and not add any to that. We add them to the grade clip up here, and that's going to then have all of those effects apply to every clip that is underneath it. So for instance, if we just pick this one here, color temperature, let's put it on the grade clip here. Let's move it across and let's make adjustments here to that color temperature. Let's just throw it right out. Okay, we're going super blue for this just to show you. Then we can see here that all the clips under that have that applied to them. But all the ones over here that aren't under that, they don't have that applied. So really powerful feature. I'm going to go ahead and remove that because we have our color grade applied to all of our clips. At this point, you want to do a last pass check, play it through, make sure everything is how you want it, make sure that everything looks and sounds how you want it, and then we can go ahead and export this and save it out. So we can access the export settings by pressing the little button here, export, or we have a dedicated menu for that up the top here. Now, if you just want a quick export with your default settings here, we can choose to file, and we can give it a name. We can choose where we want it saved. We hit save, and that export's going to happen for you. If you do want to customize things up, then let's jump across to this export tab here, and we can get things set up before we set this to export. We can also queue up multiple exports in here as well and get them all configured up in this window. If say we went export, add to queue, contents, so our entire edit, then we can see we now have this project here ready for this to export. So for this export, we now get to choose our settings. So the default preset here is YouTube 1080p HD. So it knows that our project here is a 1080p project, so it's matched that for us. And for a lot of people, that's going to be the best setting here for you. But if we press on this little arrow, you can see that there's other presets in here as well that we can use. Or if we really want to customize something up for specific settings, we can come over here to presets and we can create our own preset. So we could go new preset. What type of file do we want to save? Let's go in MP4. We can give our preset a name, JB settings, and then we really get to dial in here what we want this file to be like. And we can adjust things like our target bitrate or quality, our frame rate, all of that stuff we can key in for here. Again, for most people, I think you're not going to need to be in this section. The presets here are going to be amazing for most people using this. But if you do need access to something specific, then this is where you can do it. So we're going to leave this here at YouTube 1080p. We can choose our output destination here, so where the file is going to be saved. We can select on this. We can choose this is going to go to our desktop. We can call this JB edit.mp4 and hit save. And then we just need to hit start exporting up here for our export to start. And you can see that that's underway. So now that you're up to speed editing in HitFilm, if you want to download our free video editing process guide, which is literally the same steps that I took you through in this video, allowing you to edit your videos no matter what software you're using, fast and efficient by following that proven process, there is a link on screen to download your free copy now. And don't forget to check out the description box below. We have a bunch of other resources down there to help you as well. And I will see you in the next video.